Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup College Football Podcast, the sharpest college football podcast. My name is Robert, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, BuckMetrics. How are you doing tonight?
I am fantastic. What a great weekend of college football. Usually, when there's that many good games, there's a disappointment or two or several, and this last weekend just delivered on all fronts. It was awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of really good games. I also really liked it because I won a lot of money. I think I lost one bet from between Thursday to Friday, and I think I bet on every game. So that was really cool. And
Yeah,
then, I mean, okay, slow down a little on Saturday. You can't keep that pace all weekend. But yeah, I did really well. Florida State, huge win for me there. Probably shouldn't have won that game, but whatever, we got the win there. And some other huge wins, and yeah, just
you
a
know,
great week for us. And we had some great
quite.
reads there, and hopefully we can keep that up. Yeah.
We did. Question for you about that. I tweeted out week 0 and week 1. I had by far awesome closing line value, and those were not great weeks for me. Just the opposite last weekend. I had really poor closing line value on most of my bets, even though it was by far my best weekend too. Did you find the same?
Yeah, actually, I think that is true. Yeah, I had a lot of horrible, I remember betting. I know Wisconsin because I bet Wisconsin at 7 on for the Friday night game. I'm like, this is gonna get out to like 8, and then it was like 6,
No.
and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what is this? What is happening? I'm like, okay, all right, I guess it's I guess, like I actually doubled down. I'm like, no, this line should be more, and it was. I mean, there was a couple other ones too. I think Florida State Clemson close as well. I think I lost closing line value in terms. I lost that one.
Yeah.
I lost closing line value, and I think TCU versus SMU as well. There's a bunch of them that I lost closing line value on, and I was just like, what? And then I just won. I'm like, okay. Like the thing is, generally closing line value is good, but sometimes it's not everything, right? And I will say that like we'll talk about this more in part 2. But like already, I've gotten a ton of closing line value for next week already, and it's Tuesday. This we're
Mm-hmm.
recording this on Tuesday night, so I've actually already got. Now I don't know if that's good or not. Maybe it's not good, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Let's get to it here. Who won week 4? I think you're going to have a different take on this. This box score is glorious, and I'm not going to dig into it in too much detail, but I'm just going to tell you that was such a Ferentz masterpiece, Ferentz family masterpiece, we'll call it. So who really won the week? I think like these widely known podcasts that talk about college football, they've got material for the rest of the year just based off that performance. I mean, just the Brian pod, the emergency Brian pod, the is he fired pod. It's you just exponential increase in the amount of material that's available to the big college football national podcasts.
hmm no, it's that is true. They definitely won. I actually saw a clip on Twitter today from it's Lucy. I think her last name was Roden. She's the one Iowa fan. And she does on. I can't remember what. I can't remember who employs her, but she's really good. I enjoy a lot of her content. And she was on some podcast, and she was talking about cause she was actually attended the Iowa Penn State game, and it's obviously in College Station, so she was one of the only Iowa fans there. And apparently, I mean, obviously it didn't go well. And then apparently when they were leaving, apparently some Penn State fans said, like, they took pity on her, like, oh, it's okay, don't worry, someone will get fired for this. And she said, like, no, they won't.
No,
Still no one's been
yeah.
fired yet. So she's great, and that's a great story. But like, yeah, man, it's bad. It's there's two levels to this because like one, I think Penn State is actually really really good. I think they might
Yeah.
actually be the best team in the Big Ten, and I think a lot of people are just like, oh well, Penn State looks good, but they're still going to lose to Ohio State and Michigan. I'm like, have you seen Michigan? Have you seen Ohio
Yeah.
State? Like Ohio State needed a last second touchdown, in which there was randomly only 10 Notre Dame players on the field for some reason. Still not sure why that happened, but they needed a last
Yeah.
second. Now, first of all, I think they had to like convert like what 2 or 3 fourth and longs on that drive. There was like a 4th and 15,
Yeah.
and there was like a 4th and 20, just to even get to a position where you had the ball on the goal line. Then they had to run it in at literally last second just to get there ahead. Didn't cover the spread. They got a push. I was in the 3.5, so I felt really good about that one as well. Very sad I didn't win that money line bet, but that's okay. I cashed the spreads. But no, it's just like this is not the same Ohio State team as years past. This is definitely not the same
No.
Michigan team
Well, it's not the
either.
same
And this
quarterback.
no, not. I mean, this is a really good Penn State team. Drew Aller is really good, and this defense is
Yeah.
really good. And we
No.
even said this last year. We said we were on Penn State spread last year against Ohio State. The reason for that was we said Penn State has a good defense. Now their offense couldn't put it together. We had no confidence in Sean Clifford actually being able to beat Ohio State, but they definitely kept it close. And then last year we were on Michigan over Ohio State because we thought their defense would be able to shut them down, but their offense was powerful enough to actually win the game. Penn State has now put both of
Yeah.
those together. They now have a better defense, and their offense is definitely good enough. I think they can beat both. Like people were like, "Oh well, Penn State if they go 1-1, like if they beat Michigan and or lose to if they win one of Michigan or Ohio State, if they assume they're going to lose one of them and win one of them, they're like, oh well, if the other team beats the other one, then they could go to the conference championship game. Like, yeah, but they could just beat both of them. Like I remember a commentator made that point. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, like if they win one and lose one, then if Michigan beats or the opposite of them when they lost wins the other game, they go to the conference championship game. Like I just think they win both those games. I think they beat Ohio State and they beat Michigan. I don't know why we're talking about them losing one of those games. Like which one loses to them? Which one beats them? I don't know which one it is, and I don't think either of them do.
Yeah. And boy, just to go back to what I said in the Big Ten preview, I actually picked Penn State to make the Big Ten title game. And I said, man, how different would this team be if just Drew Aller threw 100 passes last year in games? You can't really fault James Franklin for winning the Rose Bowl. You can't say, well, you screwed that up, buddy. But man, you could just see, and I said this in the preview again, I said, you can just see after the COVID nonsense, it just built to this season. And Aller's been great, but I only bring that up because we're going to get in that stupid thing where preseason rankings might dictate, who makes it. And it's really dumb that, all right, this guy, Penn State started behind in the polls because their quarterback hadn't played as much. And, Kyle McCord didn't even play that much last season. I don't know. Okay. Anyways, yeah, good points. Talked about Penn State on the winning side of this. My other who won the week, Kenny Dillingham. Now, I'm not making fun of him with this idiot's guide to game theory. I've kind of rolled this out on this podcast from time to time. I often will say, a good idea of what your program should be doing is just do the opposite of what your big foes and your rivals want you to do. And I bring that up because during this game, Marshawn Lloyd and Austin Jones were both running for over 10 yards per rush. Caleb Williams is throwing for over 10 yards an attempt. The only thing that was really getting in the way was like stupid, like road game nonsense penalties and just dumb stuff. And I texted a couple of USC buddies. I said, if you're Kenny Dillingham, what do you kind of hope USC does with the ball? You don't want him to pass. You don't want him to run. And then it kind of dawned on me, you don't want him to get the ball. And I kind of said, well, this is interesting because he went for an onside kick and he went for fourth down 4 times. So he actually really, and it's one of these things you kind of overlook. You think it's desperation, but it's not desperation. It's really just a matter of, look, I need to keep the ball out of their hands. And you hear that said a lot, and usually that means somebody with a crappy offensive game plan that just is run, punt. And he did the opposite. He pulled a bunch of trick plays, but he was very, very aggressive, and it really made sense in that context. It's like, I just don't want these guys to get the ball. It's just that simple. And really good on him for that, And if you hear him speak, you don't think he's, I don't know, stable? Question mark. But man, it was a very well coached game for being so completely outgunned.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, again, I think USC is probably the best. Like we'll talk about my rankings later. I do have USC as number 1, and I think although the polls will never put them as number 1 for dumb reasons, I think they're the best team in the country. And the thing is, even then, like you made a good point that Caleb Williams was throwing for like 10 yards, not even just a completion, 10 yards in attempt. Um, I think basically when you look deeper into the analytics, they probably should have won that game by more, probably a lot closer what the
Yeah.
spread was. They only won that by 14. But I mean, one shout out to Arizona State for keeping that competitive. Again, Arizona State's going to be in the Big 12 next year. They're rebuilding year this year. They need to get there for next year. That's good on them. But at the same time, I think this USC team is terrifying, and I think this is kind of the like analytics theory, like the kind of the Brandon Staley thing, the like don't give the opponent the ball, right? And there was like a play with going back, I think it was the first NFL game of the season, Detroit versus Kansas City, and basically what Kansas City, I think they were like 4th and 15. I think they were pretty in their own deep in their own territory. They were down by 1 point, and basically it was like, okay, you if you go for this, you don't get it, and the opponent gets the ball on like the 40-yard line. But if you get it, then you can get into field goal range. You could possibly end the game and maybe get one or two more first downs. You can end the game. I think it was like a bit. It was at the 2-minute warning or just over the 2-minute warning. Both sides still had timeout, so the Kansas City would have gotten the ball back. But what happened was they decided to go for it, where a lot of people said like, "Oh, they should have punted it." And shout out Eric Eager on Twitter, one of he used to be with PFF, now he's with his own company. He basically said the difference was one more Patrick Mahomes play versus potentially zero more Patrick Mahomes plays.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's exactly what we're talking about right here, right? You're
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm going to go for it on fourth down, and then I'm going to basically stop. If I make the fourth down, then okay, I'm going to basically that's so many more less Caleb Williams plays versus I give the ball back to Caleb Williams, and I don't want to give the ball back to Caleb Williams, right? So that means, okay, sure, we can lose this game. We're 35-point underdogs, so who cares really if we lose this game by 60 or if we lose it by 20? It doesn't really matter. We're just going to try to win this game, right? And I think that is the path forward for trying to beat Caleb Williams. I don't know how you could do it. The thing is, the USC defense is a little squishy, and
A
there's a
little.
little squishy. There is a another team in the Pac-12 that is absolutely eviscerating defenses. That's going to be a fun game. They will play in a couple weeks, and then other team, a green team in the Pac-12. They also are pretty good on offense too. So there's going to be some really good Pac-12 games. But this is kind of showing like you just go for it and fourth down. You don't give the ball back to Caleb Williams. That's
Yeah.
the point in this. You just don't. Less Caleb Williams plays equals better chance to win, I think.
Yep. Yep. Very well said. All right. There we go. All right. So
There we go.
for you.
Perfect segue. Here we go. So, who I said one of the week is obviously Washington, right? So, I mean, this is absolutely terrifying. Like when you look at these stats, and again, it was pretty easy to kind of discard some of these stats for the first couple of weeks. Boise, okay, it's a Mountain West team, and we were skeptical of Boise. Tulsa, okay, that's not really impressing anyone. Even the Michigan State one was kind of like, well, they had fired. It was not technically not fired, but they had fired their head coach that week. So okay, yeah, we're gonna crush them. But Cal, this is a rival. These two teams, like, it's weird. Cal has this weird habit of continuously covering the spread against Washington. They've done it for like the last 4 years. I don't even know how. And it's generally when Cal's been terrible. Cal wins like 3 games, but they either cover or beat Washington. It's the weirdest thing. But like they're like, look at this: 5 passing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns, 4 and 4, over 400 yards in those first 3. The only reason he only had 300 yards in this one, Michael Penix Jr. The only reason he had 300 passing yards in this game was because he didn't even take the field. By the time he even had one offensive play, they were already at 14-6, I think, which is insane, by the way. Because
Yeah.
one, it was a pick six. And then there was also, I think, an interception return or some sort of weird thing. I was like, I basically, I didn't watch the first part of this game. I watched the end part of this game. I had to drive somewhere. Then when I got there and I had to drive somewhere and come back, I look at my phone and it was like 14-0. I'm like, because I actually bet Michael Penix under 300 and it was like some insanely high number. Like the passing yards prop was like 359 passing yards. I'm like for any other quarterback, that would be like an all-time
Yeah.
record game. It's a 50-50 whether or not he goes for one of the best passing game of any quarterback's career. So I'm like, I'm going to go under on that. And then I saw it was like, oh, it's 14-0, and I'm like, oh, well. It's like, oh man, I'm like, oh, we're going to be in trouble now. He's definitely gone over. He's probably got like 150 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. And I look at I look at on ESPN, and it's like no passing plays for Washington. I'm like, what? How is that even? How are they up 14-0? done anything on offense yet, and I go over and it's like punt return, touchdown, intercept. I'm like, oh my god, this is
Mhm.
crazy. But like this game was such an absolute domination. Like look, so I have two screenshots here. Here's Michael Penix throwing from the 45-yard line, perfect to guy in double coverage, perfectly end zone here. One-handed catch, Romeo and Dunze, and then I also put. It's hard to see it here, but there's actually the from Madden is when you're playing online and your opponent basically rage quits. It's like your opponent's left the game. That's basically like, it's 45-12. Like, and it's the second quarter. Like, this is ridiculous. This isn't fair. Like, I mean, okay, I mean, it's great. I mean, great for college football, but like, this isn't. You can't compete against this. Like, I don't even know how
No.
you're supposed to. And the question is, like, we've seen some stuff from Michael Penix before last year as well, and we saw it before when he was in Indiana. He got injured in the 2021 season, and he looked good. That was the one season Indiana was good in. The question is this Michael Penix? Has he gotten better? I mean, there's probably very easy. He's gotten better. But the question is it just that he's playing a bunch of bad defenses? Is the everything around him amazing? Because he's got two amazing wide receivers. Because here's the thing: looking at these stats, this is feeling eerily similar to LSU 2020 or 2021.
2019.
2019,
2019.
2019 LSU. This is feeling very similar to 2019 LSU when you've got Joe Burrow at quarterback and you've got two number one wide receivers, Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, just catching passes and just going like I think the stats are probably even better than that LSU team. Now, obviously, adjust the schedule. They're playing in the SEC. These guys are playing Tulsa and Boise so far, but like man, this is like you're playing USC, who has had some rough defensive games. Oregon actually had some good defensive games. They're playing Arizona this week, whose defense is horrible.
Yeah.
Like I like this team. Just watch out for this team. Like there's a good chance that this team could go to the college football playoff
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
or win the Pac-12. Like there's so many potential options for this. Like you can make an argument that USC, Oregon, and Washington should all be in contention for the college football playoff. But the thing is, they all play each other to do a round robin, right? So the problem is they're all going to beat each other up, and then we're going to end up putting some sort of mediocre SEC team in there. Yeah. So
I don't know. This season's really different. This is a lot like the season where LSU got into the title game with 2 losses. It's kind of feeling like that. I think if the Pac-10 champ, Pac-12 champ, geez, what's wrong with me, has 2 losses, I think they'll still make it because it's solid. We'll get into that in part 2.
well, the thing is, and this is the sad thing because it's actually kind of the Pac-12 years ago. I think it was like a couple of years ago. They dug in their heels and they stopped the 12-team playoff from being implemented in this year. They eventually got implemented the next year, the year after the Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. So that's great for them, but 12 teams would have been really helpful this year. It'd be really helpful for this problem
Yeah.
if we had a 12-team playoff, but we don't because of hotel rooms or some really stupid thing. So, but yeah, so
Yeah.
would have been very helpful, guys.
Well, I don't know. When did the Pac-12 ever do something that made sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Who lost the week? Did you see this?
This is amazing. I saw this live. This was
Yeah.
wow. There's a look on their face, and the thing is, it's so crazy because this was a former kicker for Clemson. He's doing his graduate degree, but because of weird, I think probably because of the COVID season, he actually had another year of eligibility. So they brought him in to replace Clemson's current kicker, and then he misses this. Now I thought this was over. Now I saw basically when I saw this play happening live, and I'm like, okay. Now there was some really bad game management here by Clemson as well. There was some really questionable game management by Dabo Sweeney on this drive as well. Um, I think it was like 4th and 1. I think they should have potentially gone for it or not, but then they missed it. I think the thing is, you feel bad for that kicker for missing this because I think it was like a 25 or 30-yard field goal. He misses it, and you feel bad for him, but at the same time, like, okay, he makes it. There's a minute 45 left. Florida State has to drive down. I think they didn't even go for it. Like, obviously, the timing is different because there's a difference between I have to get into field goal range to kick a field goal, and they were kind of actually in field goal range. They just didn't kick it because I think they were worried about it. So, like, anything could have happened. Had he made that field goal, Florida State probably also would have made a field goal, and they probably would have been tied up going into overtime. But that's beside the point, though. It's just like it was just crazy. Like the reaction of this person is hilarious. You know.
Yeah, no, it was great. The thing one of the things you didn't mention was this missed field goal, which was not from too far away. It was preceded by a quarterback draw on 3rd and 11, which is I don't know, not great. They also, what you left out after Florida State was stopped. Clemson got the ball back, and they were actually on Florida State's
That's
46-yard line with
yeah.
6 seconds left, and they didn't spike the ball. And I'm telling you, Sean McDonough is great because he doesn't give a crap, man. If somebody's screwing up, especially in late game stuff, he'll just let him have it. And he
I
just
remember
went
I heard
nuts.
this. Yeah, I was hearing this game live, and he was like, I think he was just straight up trashing them. It's like, oh, like because the first of all, they actually should have. I think they burned another timeout earlier in the drive for no reason. I think,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
they
yeah,
it was literally right before this field goal attempt that they randomly burned another timeout for no reason. So that the earlier timeout that they lost beforehand cost them, and then again they
yep,
should have spiked the ball there or any number of different things should have happened on this drive. But yeah, Clemson probably should have won this game in regulation, and then also
yeah,
would have because the thing was there was also this game was crazy because Clemson was driving pretty deep into Florida State territory. Then they punched the ball out of Cade Klubnik's hand, returned it back for a touchdown that tied the game at 24, I believe. So that's basically that led to this. Clemson was a far better team on the field. And now in overtime,
yeah.
Florida State scored a quick touchdown. They stopped Clemson on defense ball game. But like, man, like as someone who has a bunch of Florida State futures, I'm a little concerned here. Now there's lots of time to
Ah,
fix this.
come on.
There's lots of time to fix it,
You won
and
at Clemson. It's even if it's down
it is
season,
hard.
that's
It
not
is
an easy
hard.
place to play.
It to be
And
that should be
who
fair. It
has
is
had a
hard.
tougher schedule so far of any Power Five team? They played at a neutral-ish site against LSU. They played at Boston College. They played at Clemson. I don't think any other Power Five team has had two Power Five road games so far. Maybe
Yeah, actually, that's technically true. Yeah.
Colorado, but not a lot. But then I don't know anybody that's played that. Plus, throw in a neutral against LSU. I think they've had by far the toughest schedule.
Yeah, actually, I think that's actually
A
fair.
couple other things.
Mhm.
Sorry, just going back to the Clemson thing. So when he didn't spike it, I've got the quote here. Dabo said we considered we considered spiking it for a second, but we didn't have it organized enough to get done. How was that just not like that's what you do when you're in a late game situation? You line up that you don't have. That's not even a decision, right?
There's not a play
That's
like
just
like first of all, Dabo is probably what I've never ever been actually in the middle of a football field, but he's what like 15, 20 feet away. He could just yell spike the ball, and then they just get there and like
yeah,
this is every day in practice. You do a 2 minute drill, so I don't know why that's not a they're not just ready to do spike the ball. Um,
yeah.
very
Well, it's
questionable.
part of your 2 minute offense. It's literally you don't look at the sideline, you just do it. And another thing you didn't mention was in on their last possession in overtime, they had a 3rd and 1, and they did a wide receiver screen that actually lost yardage. It was just a
Yes,
horrible
I remember.
decision. I
Mhm.
can't say call because they said, well, that was a quarterback option. It's like, well, why is that even an option when you have less than a yard? And now Clemson's 3-4 against Power Five schools in their last 7. So, all right, let's get this poor lady's unfortunate visage off of our screen
Yes,
here. All right.
yes. So this is who I
This
said
is
lost the weeks.
yeah.
We kind of talked about the other end of this too in the Penn State end, but I'm going to talk about the Iowa end. This was really bad. You completed 6 passes against a Big 12, a Big 10 opponent. That's not good. Um, shout out here to Sickos Committee. This is their graphic. Iowa remains at you can't really see it there, but the climb to 325. They have 85 points there. No, an increase of no points from last week. They should be at 100, so that means they're negative 15. I think a couple weeks ago they were like negative 10. They came back, but as you can see there on the far right, first game, Utah State, that's pretty easy. Iowa State, that's non-conference as well. Western Michigan, that's non-conference. That's a MAC team. That's the most points they scored all season. Getting blown out with 0 points against Penn State is really bad. But guess what? Look at the remaining 8 games. All of them are conference games. A lot of them are Big Ten West teams. You got Minnesota, who's supposed to have a good defense, but they did allow 400 passing yards against Ben Bryant somehow from Northwestern. I don't know how that happened. You got Rutgers, who's improved this year. Illinois, who is improved as well. Nebraska also is a pretty good defense, and Wisconsin's a good defense too. Purdue questionable, but okay. Like, are you going to put 50? Are you going to hang 50 on Purdue? No, but that might be the only path to get into 325 points here or 300 points here.
Yeah.
Michigan State as well. Like, okay, maybe you can if you don't start hanging 50 points on some of these teams, you're in trouble here. Like, you're not going to be able to put, like, you may not get 25 against Nebraska, or, well, that game's always weird. So maybe they will. I don't know. But, like, not against Minnesota, not against Wisconsin. Like, if you don't start packing on some points in this, you're not even going to get close to 300. And like again, some of these are a lot tougher. Like there's a non-zero chance Iowa either 5-5 or 4-6. They might not even make a bowl, or no, whatever it is, 5 and they may not make a bowl. They might go 6-6 or like 5-7. May not make a bowl here. So very concerning for Iowa here. This offense is not improved. Again, they had 17 carries for 20 yards, 1.2 yards a carry. Now I think there was a sack or two in there. I'm not sure, but again, like 42 yards passing, and then the guy comes in, Deacon Hill, 1 for 214 yards, some spark there, but like it's just you can't complete 6 passes against a Big Ten team. You can't. You're a Division I team. You're not an FCS team. There has to be higher levels of expectations, and this is what people said, right? People said Cade McNamara, great fit. He's going to really help boost this offense. There's people like they're going to average 30 points a game, 28 points a game. No, we're not even close. Now, to be fair, Penn State does have a very good defense, so okay, that's fine. But 0, like you should have okay, man, maybe you're not going to meet the 25 against Penn State, but you got to put something on the board here. Like they're not even trying to save his job, and I think that. I think that basically, I think their athletic director is stepping down, right? He's retiring. They're going to find a new one. I think if you can't, like, with this contract, I kind of think you have to get rid of both Ferences. You can't just be like, okay, the Sun's fired. We're gonna keep Kirk. You get rid of both. You just say they're both gone. That's it. You have to, because this is a clown show. And you know what? Even the defense is regressing. Like 31 points against Penn State. Like the defense has regressed. Like wait until you see what Wisconsin does to like. The defense is not as good as it used to be now. Some of that's because the losses to the NFL draft, but like you've got to do something here. I think the end of the day, both are going. I think they're going to have to fire both of them. I don't think you can just get rid of one and keep the other. Well, okay, you're not just going to get rid of Bryan and keep Kirk. There would be no up. You wouldn't keep Bryan and get rid of Kirk. You have to get rid of both of them, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And the one thing I would add to this is Cade McNamara was the first quarterback to take Michigan to the playoff, and look what they've done to him. The poor guy.
They've broken him.
Yeah, like I said, we talked about offseason quarterback moves. I asked the question: is he lost? Did his car just break down in Iowa, and that's where he decided to go to? Now. I don't get it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Victory laps. This is. I actually tweeted out. This is our. From our pod last week. These are the plays that we had. I tweeted this out on Friday. And shout out to the guy who basically on Friday afternoon said, in reference to the to the Air Force San Jose State game, said, if your guys' models are off by 8 points and you guys are both so far off from the market, there's something wrong with your models. And I believe Air Force won by 17. I might be off a point or two on that. And then my guy deleted the tweet. So sorry, didn't catch your name. But shout out.
Splitting the difference.
Thanks.
Splitting the difference there between splitting the difference there between yours and my model. Yeah. I mean, shout out to that guy.
Thanks for letting us know that we screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there are people who are weirdly worship Vegas lines. They're like, this is what the line should be, and like you can only find a small edge either way. My contention is that's just wrong. Like there is so much in these lines that is not modeling. When you go to the NFL and even in college too. Yeah, well, I'm sure we're gonna talk about Texas versus Kansas this week. That price, as far as I could tell, is not that line is not based on anything in reality at all. it is completely based on the fact that a lot of people are going to their bookie this week and they're going to put down ungodly amounts of money on Texas. That's the only thing that line is based off of. That line has no basis in reality. But the thing is, and that's now, you know what? Here's the thing: I could be wrong. Texas could cover that spread. Sure, fine, whatever, right? But the point is, there's reason why certain things are that. Like, for example, Notre Dame probably shouldn't have been 3.5 point dogs to Ohio State. There is a lot of reasons. Like, there's teams that are public teams, and then because they know money's going to come in on those teams, therefore that's why the spread is. Oregon absolutely crushing Colorado. The reason they had the massive liability this week on Colorado, they were ecstatic when Oregon absolutely crushed them. Had they really been worried about that, they would have moved that line down. That line would have been 17, 17 and a half. And it was. It went up to 21 and a half. They were like, this is fine. They were completely fine putting up a 21 and a half point spread there. They're like, that's it. It's fine. We don't care about this. And then they absolutely crushed everybody. They literally got a winning week. Other bookies on Twitter said that they literally were positive this week just because Colorado didn't cover the spread against Oregon. They were up because of that. Nothing else in any of their games mattered. They were up just because of that, which is insane. But
Yeah.
that just shows you that there is so much more in these lines than just um, there is so much more in these lines than just like I think people assume that if Vegas sets a spread, it is like pinnacle of modeling. They've incorporated every single last possible thing. And to
Yeah.
be fair, when
Yeah.
you're looking at NFL spreads, okay, yeah, there is a lot of that up there. Some of those are pretty sharp because they know there is going to be a ton of money on each side of that. But you are looking at a Friday night game at 10:30 at night between two Mountain West teams who do not have large fan bases. And I think in a lot of cases, they just put up a number to hope people bet on it. And I think that you could take a huge advantage of this. And as someone who bets on esports, there is so many examples of teams that have just massive underdogs that should not be that price like that, and they just win outright as 10-1 underdog, like plus 1,000, plus 1,400. Like just unbelievable spread. You can get like spreads, the equivalent of video game, like esports spreads with like plus money that should not even be remotely close to that. And you just like, it's not even close. Like just because the spread is in a book does not mean it is completely modeled 100% correct. And I think a lot of NFL people have misconceptions of that because they see a spread as like, oh, the spread's 2.5 and a team won by a field goal. Therefore, everything Vegas does is correct. It's like, it's not. Like that Air Force spread alone, not accurate. There are so many spreads, again, and that's just one example of it. So many spreads from last weekend. LSU was 17.5 point favorites. They won by 3, right? So many spreads. Not in college, you see this a lot more. The Vegas spread is not even remotely correlated to what the final outcome of the game is. And I think people haven't quite realized that. They see a lot of it in the NFL, which games are close, and it kind of tips them to think, oh, these spreads are right. But when you look in college, the spreads have no correlation to what the final outcome of the game is.
And I would actually kind of flip that argument and say, I'm going to be nice here. I would be very interested to see any model that actually had North Carolina giving 7.5 and Air Force giving 3.5. I'd love to see it just for curiosity's sake. And if I wanted to be mean, really just to poke holes in it because no rational person could look at the dumpster fire that Pitt is and just say, oh, yeah, they're within 7.5 North Carolina. Other than just some kind of huge Narduzzi factor where it might be, okay, maybe 7 points because this might be the game where he actually shows up. So, all right. Boy, you've got a bunch going on here, Victory Laps.
Well, they're kind of two ones here. So one is obviously I just threw up a bunch of stats here. Oregon versus Colorado. I said I can't remember how I worded it last week, but I said something very close to along the lines of like, "That's it. The Colorado bubble is over. There's no more." Basically, the Colorado bubble died there with the. I think I said they lost the week because even though they won against Colorado or Colorado State, that was it. It's over. It's done. Shedeur Sanders passed for I think like 150 yards. His over under was
Yeah,
like 300, so it's
159.
half of that. Horrible game by Colorado. Got blanked 42. The only reason the six is there is because they scored there late in the fourth quarter. The problem is, I think Shedeur Sanders looked really, really good against a bunch of like not particularly good defenses. Even struggled there a little bit against Nebraska. I think Shedeur Sanders. I think their offensive line is bad, and he can't stand up to pressure. And I
Huh.
think when he doesn't get pressured, he looks amazing. But the second he plays even a remotely good defense, he gets absolutely like he throws. Well, he doesn't really throw picks; he just throws incompletions and stuff. And again, they ran for 40 yards against Oregon's defense. Not good. That being said, conversely, Bo Nix threw for 276 yards, and then they ran for another 200 and some odd yards, like averaging 6 yards a play. Just absolutely crushed them up and down the field. And again, it's like this isn't to shoot on Colorado. Look, I bet on some Colorado futures. I think people were too overhype on them. I have Colorado over, I think 4.5. Very happy. That looks pretty good for me. I think they get a couple. They have a
Mm-hmm.
couple of easier games. They can definitely cross that. They're only 2 wins away from that. That's good. I got that at like plus 200. But like Colorado win the Pac-12, no. College football, no. They're not doing that. But this is still a pretty good and fun team, and I like it. Dion has made a huge improvement here, and we said this, but we basically said, yeah, this is it. This is the line. You're not going to go much further than this. This is the end of the road for you. And additionally, our other victory lap that we should be taking is on Sam Houston State. You love the under 13.5. I went a different way. I just said screw it. Houston minus 13. I don't like. I'm like, you know what? What if there's some garbage time touchdown somewhere and they get the fourth? I don't. I'm just whatever. Houston, and it wasn't even close because I even said last week. I'm like, you know what? At some point, people are going to figure out how to score against this team, and Houston just decided, okay, yeah, we're just going to score against this team. It just absolutely basically once after in the second quarter when they were up 24-7, this game was over. Like, what's Sam Houston going to do? They can't do anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
they just absolutely just crushed them. They're like we're going to finish this off. And again, he passed for less than Shedeur Sanders. And again, Oregon was up like 40 some, like they had like 30 some odd points at the half, and like obviously Oregon's be like, sure, fine, whatever. You want to take a 10-yard completion? Sure, we don't care, right? He couldn't even pass for that against Houston, right? So, and again, 25 for, I think, 62 or 25 for 50 something. Like, this is horrendous. This offense is horrible. Like, okay, their defense has been good, but now they're actually playing decent teams. This is kind of it for Sam Houston as well. So, yeah, like they've now kind of we're now getting to the edge of the popping the bubble here for Sam Houston as well. I mean, obviously there's not really a bubble there. They're winless. They scored their first offensive touchdown. There's no real bubble there. But yeah, like this is the to put them in the dirt phase. This is okay. Sam Houston State is not good, and they are not good on offense. And now people have figured out how to beat them on defense. So that's where we're at with them now.
Yeah. 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 Market's not caught up to them for sure. People are still just guessing. I think. I don't think there's really a lot of solid data behind. What we missed. Syracuse is undefeated, and I just kind of tossed them out at the beginning of the season. Oh, did you get a weird message there? No. Are you there?
No, what's it? Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I got a weird message just popped up. So
Oh, okay.
I wrote them off in the preseason pod on the ACC. They have a new OC. He was a promoted quarterback coach, which I'm usually not a huge fan of. I remember Robert Anae was the OC that did such great work there, and he went to NC State. So I thought this would be a huge step back. They lost Tony White, the defensive coordinator to Nebraska. They picked up Rocky Long, and basically what they got was a mentor who basically was completely toiling in New Mexico and found a new life at Syracuse. Their defense is really solid. And you look back, remember last season, I think they were actually the first deeper dive I ever did. It was like, can this hold up when they started 4-0? And, they were actually 7-2 when Garrett Schrader was healthy last season. So I just missed on this one. I just tossed it as yep, stars aren't lining up, coaching changes I don't like, but I've actually got them ranked pretty high when we get to part two. So I was surprised. I do have them pretty high. The other thing I missed is, you know what? Mario is just not getting in the way of the offense, and there's no way to see that coming because he's kind of done that, every season since he took the Oregon job. And our guy here has just learned to get out of the way, and the offense is pretty freaking good, man. Um, all the stuff that you heard just sounded like a bunch of excuses, off-season bullcrap, but got to give him credit. He has gotten out of the way, and that offense is just a huge step up. Just like our guy Josh predicted in the ACC preview. Just realized that both
Yeah.
ACC teams that I missed.
Yeah, no, I mean,
So
shout out for Miami here. I mean, they've definitely impressed me, and I will be the first to now. It is a little early, and they think the best team they played was like Miami of Ohio. Actually, they played Temple this week. They crushed them. My model right now is very
they played
very
A and
high.
M.
Oh, that's right. That's right. My bad. Yeah, they played AM. They crushed them too. So this team is actually very good. I like they are probably like I actually think they're probably one of the best teams in the ACC. I think they're a sleeper pick to actually win the ACC. I have them. We'll talk about them in more of my rankings in a bit, but I think they're one of the best teams in college football, like a top five team in college football. The rankings are not going to say that for obvious reasons. Um, but man, though, like they're one of the best teams in like they're a really really good team, and I like watching Florida State this week was concerning, and I'm starting to think like, oh man, like, and again, I'll say this again, 12 teams would be very helpful this year, because you have Florida State, you have Clemson has now been eliminated because that's how the rules work. So bye Clemson. North Carolina is undefeated. Miami's undefeated. Florida State is undefeated. I think there's a non-zero chance one of them could take FSU down because I think Miami plays FS or no I one of them plays Florida State, one of them doesn't. I know Miami plays North Carolina, and I think North Carolina plays Florida State. I'm not sure, but
Well,
there's
you
some
know, Miami
combination
plays
of
Florida
it.
State every year.
Oh, okay. Then Florida State doesn't play North
I
Carolina
think
then.
Florida State
But
misses North Carolina. Yeah,
yeah, I I am a little concerned that one of them could take it down. I think right now I have both of them favored over Florida State right now, but I think it's a bit too hype again. I think there is some problems with like again, Florida State. It's hard when you look at the resume, right? They beat a good LSU team that's, I mean, in the rankings, still kind of recovering. They played a close game against Boston College. Boston College is actually kind of a sneaky long road trip for Florida State. Most of the games have been in the South, right? Now they have to travel all the way up north. That's not great. At the same time, they played not great against Clemson. They thankfully, I think they have a bye week this week, right? Yeah, they have a nice bye week. It's either a bye week or they play a bad team. I can't remember, but I think they have a bye week this week. So shout out to them. Let them rest. I think Travis has been a little bit injured too. Let them rest, get a nice week under them, and then
yeah,
let's see if we can get back to that dominant Florida State. But until we see that, and we see Miami or North Carolina regress a bit, I think Miami is an amazing bet. I think they're like they're some like 20 or 30 to 1 to win the ACC. Like that's kind of crazy. That's worth like a small little sprinkle somewhere. North Carolina I think is 7 to 1, but Miami is potentially a worthwhile shot to win the ACC here. I think they could actually make some roads here. But again, we're now down to we only have 4 teams this year, right? So you start penciling in like which team is not going to make it here? Like there's going to be a very good case for like either like a Miami, a North Carolina, or a Florida State, an LSU, potentially a Tennessee, potentially a Florida, 2 more Pac-12 teams, and then whatever team is better between Ohio State and Michigan that loses to Penn State or some combination of that, there's going to be a really good case for whatever those teams are, potentially even Texas, Oklahoma, maybe even Kansas in there to be like, hey, we should have been in the college football playoff, and they're not. Like, I think the last year of the 14 college football playoff is going to be like a final nail in the coffin for it, where there's going to be some controversy and someone is not going to be very happy. Which, of
yeah,
course, that's how this would work.
yeah.
So, because it's college football. So,
Yep,
yeah.
exactly. It's a college football thing. Okay. Oh man, this hurt. My Narduzzi
This
Award,
hurt.
Joe Moorhead. I love you, and I actually, I couldn't believe this is unfolding. I missed part of the, I missed some of the Notre Dame Ohio State game and the beginning of the USC Arizona State game just to watch this mess unfold. This was bad, man. Akron actually had it tied in the fourth quarter against Indiana. They had something I'd never, ever, ever seen before. In the fourth quarter, they actually had an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on their strength coach, who ran onto the field to argue with or yell at my Indiana player. He got ejected, which I have never seen before. Strength coach, good job, guy. Um, the final possession of regulation, they go 39 yards in 33 seconds. They get a first down on the Indiana 14, and my guy Moorhead, he just goes for a field goal. He just does just move it to the center of the field, just a quarterback run, and don't really try. They miss a field goal from 29 as time expires. They get a touchdown in overtime, and it's at Indiana. You have to go for two, and he just goes. He instead entrusts his kicker, who just missed a field goal that's not much farther. And they made it, but then after like it's in the fourth overtime, which really dug into games that everybody normal people were watching. They finally lose in the fourth overtime. This is a rough one, especially with someone who likes Akron and has them over. I think it's 4 wins or 3.5 wins. This was a rough one.
Yeah, I mean, we were on Akron 17 plus 17.5, so that cashed. It's like when you get to certain points in games, it's like, okay, the other team has to score and then score again and then score again, even though they don't have to because they're already like at a certain point you just win a spread bet, right? Like once you're past like a 7, if it's a tied game and you're past like a 7.5, like there's no reason to score multiple times. Like they're just gonna take a knee and then end the game, right? So we won the spread bet, but again it was like I think 5 or 6 to 1, and you're like, come on, and you don't get it. It's like, oh, it's so sad. But I mean, they came. Like the thing
Yeah.
isn't, again, this is the thing, right? People are gonna be like, oh well, they lost, so then why would you make that bet? It's like, I'd make that bet every day, like 10 times out of 10 times I make that same bet if
Yeah.
I know that this is gonna come down to a shank 29-yard field goal from cashing a 5 to 1. And yeah, every day, like 10 times, 10 out of 10 times I make that play, right? Because there's value on it, even though you lose the bet. You were so close to making a huge win there, so of course you're going to make that bet. That's how that works. But yeah, I mean, Akron season's not done yet, but you are a MAC team though. You gotta take your chances to beat this. You almost look down a Big Ten team. I mean, that's big. It's not a good Big Ten team,
Yeah.
but still a Big Ten team. So yeah, but and Akron still they're gonna have to play. They're gonna have a lot of MAC play left. I don't think have they played a MAC team yet or not. I don't know. But like
Not
they're
yet. No.
But they'll be an interesting team. Oh, that's right. They got Buffalo. Oh, look, they have Buffalo this week, and I've got them against Buffalo. I think they should
Yeah.
I think that it's like basically a pick, and I've got Akron as massive favorites there. So let's see what happens there.
Yeah. It was a step forward too. It's like they had barely beat Morgan State last week or the week
Mm-hmm.
before. So, but man, that would have been a nice one to have. All right. Yeah. Thanks for bringing this up. I appreciate this.
Yeah. So PJ Fleck seen here looking concerned about the state of his offense and defense. Like this is Northwestern. They don't have a coach. I mean, I'm sure someone is the coach. I don't know who that is. But like this, like 400 yards. Ben Bryant passed for 400. Yeah, I mean a combination 396, and then some guy. I think I'm not sure if it's a backup or some trick play or something. He threw for 4 yards. You let 400 yards passing against a team that has no head coach, and that is you're supposed to be a good defense. Now, okay, you completely shut them down from running the ball. Okay, good job. Well, actually, you kind of, it's like 3.5. It's not good, but it's not amazing though. And okay, yeah, sure, you ran for 5.8, but there's a problem here. This shouldn't have been close. Like there might be some problems here in Minnesota, and we kind of saw this with Nebraska
Yeah.
because they played Nebraska close, and then Nebraska got destroyed by Colorado. So, oh, you got something open there.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry about that.
it's all good. No, but you this should not have been this close, and I have concerns about Minnesota. I wasn't there like a rumor that he was going to be he's the leading contender for the Michigan State job, and then it's like that days later he just comes out and does this, just like wow, like
Maybe he just doesn't want that job.
yeah, he's like I don't want the Michigan State job. I'll just fail here. Like I don't understand. Like this is just
Watch this.
yeah. Blow your chance at the Michigan State job with one weird trick.
As someone who has Minnesota over 7 wins, I'm not optimistic about that ticket. I'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
This was pretty much scheduled in as a W. All right, noted for future reference. So other little kind of notes. Updating Jordan McLeod, James Madison now 4-0 as a starter, 129 apex. Good road win at Utah State, who stinks, and I didn't understand that line at all. The line actually went down.
Yeah, it was like 5.5.
That was one that went against me. I was getting 5.5. Well, I got it 5.5. Went down to 4.5 at one point.
And this is another one where James Mad. I ended up betting this because my model had like some value, but not as much value as you had. And I bet this, and I was like, I think they were up like they were up some insanely huge number. It's like 28-10 or something. And I'm like, good, got
Yeah.
this. Good job, everybody. Uh, I'm like, oh shit, I should have bet like some alt spreads here. Nope, nope. JMU's just like,
Uh,
nope, screw you. We're gonna make this game close for some reason, and now I won the bet because they eventually won by 7. But they're just like, nope, we're just gonna. Apparently, JMU's really good at keeping games competitive. They're like, yeah, I mean, we got a big lead. They can get
yeah.
some points. It's fine.
Yeah. Yep. They want people to stay to the end. Maybe that's why it was so close against Virginia a couple weeks ago.
We need the beer
And then
sales.
our yes, especially Utah State, and a lot of beer to be sold there.
Yep.
Um, Arkansas down to 4.02 yards per rush. Just reminder, a couple of weeks ago, I got into it with somebody on Twitter who said that Arkansas's rushing game is exactly where they want it to be. And okay, congratulations, guys, 4 yards a rush. That'll do you really well in the SEC. New items. You talked on Sam Houston, first touchdown of the season. Way to go, guys! Things are looking up. Um, this game, Arkansas State versus Southern Miss, I want to point out that this is not a matter of two good offenses. This is just two bad teams because both of them had really bad defenses coming into this game. So just kind of one of those don't be deceived by the final score. It's just bad football. It's not great offense that you're looking at with these two teams. Um, Kansas, they gave up less than 5 yards per play against BYU. They have and the numbers are fluid this early in the season. I have them at a plus 2.4 defensive rating. They were a minus 9.8, which is really interesting. You know, when I got all heated in the preview of the Big 12, I was upset about the season total of 6 being a pat on the head, and I said, "Watch, their defense is going to improve," and they're making me look smart. So far,
Yeah, a quick point
I've
on
kind
this.
of thrown it. Oh,
I just
yes,
want to jump in back.
please.
Yeah, this was one of the few bets I got that actually got closing line value. Because I grabbed Kansas at 7.5, I think, on last Sunday, and then it was like 8.5, 9. Now they covered all those numbers, so it didn't matter. But like this was one of the ones
They
that I
did,
was
yeah.
like, I actually got closing line value, so I was very happy about that. I'm like, oh, and I don't understand why the line was so short at first. I think, now to be fair, Kansas this week is playing Texas. Maybe people thought this was a look ahead game, but they did not do that at all. They like hung in there, and shout out to them. Well, I'm going to save it for later. Let's talk about
Yeah.
Kansas later.
Okay. Yep. This I refer to this time to time. I think one of the big overrated or underrated angles slash overlooked angles is the first road conference game for a season. That's why I can overlook Florida State just like not giving a crap against Boston College or sleepwalking. It happens, and just for reference, I think Pete Carroll was actually under 500, or maybe just right at 500 at USC in his first road conference game of the season, and I think he lost maybe a total of like after his first season, I think he lost maybe five conference games besides that the rest of the way in his last 9 years. So this is a great example because all of these road teams, it was their first conference road game for the season. UCLA loses. Dante Moore just absolutely looked horrible. He'll be better. It just figures. Just one of those. Okay, what's going on here? Games. Cal just got
Quick, actually,
eviscerated.
quick
Yeah,
point about the UCLA game. 7 of those Utah points was a pick six,
yeah.
and the
On the
field goal
first play.
on the first play. So that game should have been 7-7 going into overtime had it not been for that pick six. Like Utah did nothing, and people were like, top 10 team guys. No, Utah is not good, guys. Like they should have probably lost to UCLA. My model also thinks they should have lost to UCLA. Like Utah is like they are just like skating by. No one has like really had a chance to like dig into them and put them in the dirt yet. But give it some time. This Utah team is, and I actually maybe this week potentially they're already 3.5 point dogs to Oregon State. Uh, this week might finally be the time when someone actually says, "Okay, screw you. We're done with letting you be undefeated. You're not an undefeated. You're not a good team anymore. You're done."
Yeah. Well, number one, they have yet to take anybody's best punch by far, and number two, along the lines of this discussion, at Oregon State will be their first conference road game of the season. I think it'll be very different, especially for them since they have an awesome home field advantage.
Yeah, actually that's true.
Um,
Yeah, because when when Florida played them, they hadn't learned how to play football yet. Now they've learned it, so that they're good now. They learned the whole jersey thing. They had to figure that part out. Now they're good. But yeah, no, like yeah, and they played Baylor, and they almost lost to Baylor, and Baylor's like it's so funny because when with that this is the best thing I love about my model because like my model changes dynamically for the season. When that game happened, I had I think Baylor as like a small dog, like 5 or 6 point underdog. Then they came close to covering that game, but then immediately after my model was like, okay, Baylor is bad, and I'm like, that's weird. They shouldn't be that bad, and then they just get obliterated by Texas. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe the model is right. Maybe Baylor is really that bad, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
Utah only beat them by just that little is actually like concerning for Utah rather than the other way around. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cal gets eviscerated. Colorado, we talked about, they just got crushed. Oregon State, this game was not nearly as close as it looks like. I think there was some backdoor-ish kind of action there. Arizona wins by 1 at Stanford, which is probably one of the worst efforts on here. And like I said, USC at 42 is by far their lowest point output of the season, and they had a bunch of just stupid, just really ragged stuff on offense that it's one of those things that just first conference road game of the season. So this weekend just really illustrated. So look at the flip side of that as you've seen the other side of that for teams this week.
Yeah, that USC one in particular. I watched a lot of the games. I was doing USC, Arizona State, Washington, Cal, and then I had on my tablet New Mexico State versus Hawaii. Shout out to the team. Well, shout out to Sickos Committee for telling people to go on the Team One Sports app or whatever it's called. Randomly, it had that game. I have no idea how or any sort of licensing on that, but whatever. I don't care. I got to see that game somehow. So shout out to them for that. But I was watching all three of them, and there's like, I think what was USC's like fourth down conversion rate? Like 2 for 10. Like there were so many times it's like, oh, fourth down. Oh, they just went for. They're just like there were so many times when they could have kicked a field goal. They're just like, screw it, we're just gonna go for this 4th and 6, and they just didn't get. And they're like, all right, well, that didn't work. Like it was just like there were so many times when I think just said, screw it, we should be winning this game by more, and then they just weren't. So like they'll be fine. I'm not
Yeah.
worried about USC. I think USC will be okay, but that was just a very weird and frustrating game for them. They should have won that game probably by like 28 or something.
Yep. And that's why I don't push the panic button in those situations. I've seen it too many times where it's just like, it's not quite a throw out, but it's definitely set it aside and just evaluate it differently. Especially USC would always lose those kind of games. If Clay Helton was a coach, we lose that by 10 points. It just becomes an avalanche. Finally, I kind of have a crush on Virginia here. Colandrea again just went nuts. He was all over the place, and the announcers were going crazy. And then, of course, Virginia did some really stupid stuff at the end to lose to NC State. It just was undescribable, and I was cooking dinner, so I didn't catch all of it. But it was just a series of horrible mistakes. I think I like their defensive coordinator. I made that point before the season, and they've got this crazy athletic quarterback who doesn't give a crap, and he just lets it rip, and he throws for a lot of yards. Good team to watch. I think they'll get 1 or 2 big wins before the season's over.
Now I've got some bad news. Tony Elliott came out today and said that Tim Musket or whatever is starting the next game.
Don't. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's literally on Twitter.
Are you
He's
serious?
saying that, we're bringing the old guy back. Yeah.
All right.
For like he'll be
That's
he'll be
part
starting
one,
for the
folks.
first half. He'll be starting for the first half. He'll be back in the second half.
All right. Unbelievable.
All right.
All right.
That's
Thanks.
that's it for part one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nothing like going out part one on a low note like that. Well done, Robert.
Don't worry. Here's the thing. Colandrea will transfer him. We'll definitely see him on the college football field again. But yeah.
Yep.
Next year's Florida quarterback.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
See you guys in part 2. There you go.
Yep.